They never wanted you to rise. They built a world where the odds were against you from the start, where every road was lined with traps, every door rusted shut before you could knock. You were never meant to be strong. They designed it that way, constructed an existence where your voice was drowned before it could ever reach the surface, where your hands trembled from the weight of burdens you never asked for. They whispered to you as you fell, convincing you that the ground was where you belonged. You know this place, the darkness, the silence that follows failure, the cold embrace of loneliness when the people you trusted the most watched you break and turned away, uninterested in putting your pieces back together. There were days you screamed, but the world responded with nothing. There were nights you begged for someone, anyone, to see your pain, but all they saw was the version of you they could control. And when you collapsed under the weight of it all, they nodded in satisfaction, because that's what they expected. You were meant to be small. You were meant to be weak. You were never meant to stand up again. They wanted you broken. They wanted your dreams to dissolve into dust, slipping through your fingers, leaving nothing but regret. They wanted you trapped in a cycle of almosts and not quites, running in place until exhaustion became your identity. They wanted to see the light in your eyes dim, to hear the hesitation in your voice when you spoke of something bigger than yourself. They wanted your hands to stay idle, your spirit to stay buried, your ambition to become nothing more than a forgotten whisper. They wanted you to surrender before you even knew there was a fight to win. And maybe for a while, you did. Maybe you believed them. Maybe the lies they fed you became the gospel you recited in your mind. Maybe you looked in the mirror and saw nothing but the reflection of their expectations. Someone weak, someone afraid, someone incapable of more. Maybe you let the weight of their words become your own, dragging you into an abyss so deep you forgot what light even looked like. And when you reached for something, anything, to pull yourself out, all you found were shadows. But something inside you still burns, doesn't it? Even in the depths of this darkness, even under the crushing weight of their doubts, there is something inside you that refuses to die. A whisper, small, almost drowned by the noise of your past. But it's there. It's been there all along. It's the part of you that never stopped fighting, even when you convinced yourself you had nothing left. It's the part of you that feels anger instead of surrender, fire instead of numbness. It's the part of you that is waking up. They wanted you to stay in the dark. They wanted you to accept the role they gave you. But they made one mistake. They forgot that even in the deepest abyss, fires still burn. They wrapped the chains around you before you even knew what freedom was. Not iron, not steel, something worse. Something you couldn't see, something you couldn't touch, but you felt its weight pressing against your skin, tightening with every passing year. The chains weren't made of metal. They were forged from the words they spoke over you, the names they called you, the limits they carved into your mind before you ever had a chance to define yourself. You weren't given a choice. You were handed an identity that was never yours, told who you were, what you could be, and how far you were allowed to go. And the worst part? You believed them. They told you that you weren't enough, and so you carried that sentence like a brand on your soul. You let their words become the borders of your existence, a prison without walls, but with locks, stronger than iron. Every time you tried to step beyond it, the ghosts of their voices pulled you back. Who do you think you are? Stay in your place. People like you don't make it out. And so, you stayed. Because fighting against something invisible felt impossible. Because when enough people tell you what you can't do, you start to wonder if they're right. You felt it, didn't you? The slow erosion of your dreams. The way hope shrank with every passing year. The way you started silencing yourself before they had the chance to do it for you. You learned to make yourself small, to fit into the mold they built for you, to nod along when they told you who you were supposed to be. And in that silence, in that stillness, something inside you began to rot. Because deep down, you knew this wasn't who you were meant to be. But the chains didn't just come from them. No, some of them you forged yourself. With every failure, every mistake, every time you let yourself down, you started building your own walls, locking the doors from the inside. You told yourself you weren't capable, you weren't worthy, you weren't ready. You convinced yourself that the past defined you, that every wrong turn had sealed your fate. And so, you stayed caged, not because the door was locked, but because you had stopped believing you could walk through it. But here's the thing about chains. They only hold power if you refuse to fight against them. They only define you if you accept their weight. And somewhere, in the deepest part of you, a truth is stirring, a whisper growing louder, a defiance you tried to bury, now clawing its way back to the surface. The realization that you were never meant to be owned, never meant to be caged, that everything they told you was a lie. And now, the question isn't whether the chains can be broken. The question is, what happens when you finally decide to rip them off? You've spent years hiding them, the scars, the marks they left on you, the evidence of every war you've fought, some against them, but most against yourself. You've traced them with your fingers in the silence of the night, wondering if they were proof of your weakness, if each one was a reminder of the times you fell and never fully got back up. You've covered them with smiles, with distractions, with the illusion that you were never hurt at all. But the truth is that your scars tell a different story. They are not symbols of defeat. They are not remnants of failure. They are proof that you survived. They are the map of your warpath, the signature of battles that tried to break you but never succeeded. Every scar is a story, and every story ends the same way. You are still here. You have bled for this. You have suffered for this, and yet you are still standing. That alone should terrify them, because pain was supposed to be your end. But instead, it became your beginning. They thought every wound would drain you of your power, but they didn't realize that pain is the forge where steel is made. And you have been tempered by the fire. Every burn, every cut, every broken piece. They weren't destroying you. They were making you unbreakable. Think about it. The things that were meant to kill you, where are they now? The moments that made you believe you couldn't go on. Why are you still here? They wanted your pain to be the weight that sank you, but instead, it became the foundation you stand on. They wanted your wounds to be a cage, but instead they became the very thing that freed you. Because now, you know the truth. You are not fragile. You are not weak. You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by the fact that no matter how many times you've been hurt, no matter how many times you've fallen, you are still rising. So stop hiding your scars. Stop pretending you were never broken. Wear them like armor. Let them see what you've endured. Let them know that every attempt to destroy you only made you stronger. Let them realize, too late, that they should have never tried to break someone who was born to withstand the fire. Because now, the fire is yours to command. The battle was never just against them. It was never just about the people who doubted you, the voices that tried to keep you small, the world that seemed determined to watch you fail. No, the real war has always been inside you. The enemy isn't out there, it's in the mirror. It's the version of you that believed them, the one that accepted the lies, that shrank in the face of fear, that let hesitation become a habit, the one that whispered, maybe they're right, the one that stood still when it should have fought, the one that let doubt dig its roots into your mind and call itself truth. This is where the real war begins, not against the past, not against them, but against the voice in your head that tells you you're not enough, the voice that learned to sound like your own, the one that whispers every reason why you should stay where you are. You'll fail again. You're not ready. You don't have what it takes. It speaks in echoes, every word laced with old wounds, every syllable stitched together with fear. And for too long, you listened. For too long, you let that voice be your master. But that voice is a liar. You feel it, don't you? The war inside you. Every time you hesitate, every time you start to move forward only to pull yourself back. Every time you dream of something bigger, something more, and then tear it down before the world even has a chance to. It's not them stopping you anymore. It's you. You've become your own captor, your own warden, the one reinforcing the chains that should have rusted away by now. And the worst part, you don't even realize you're doing it. But now, you see it. Now, you feel it. Now, you recognize the enemy. And that means one thing: you can fight back. This is where everything shifts. This is where the rebellion begins. Not against the world, not against your past, but against you. Against the version of you that would rather play it safe than risk becoming something greater. Against the voice that tells you to sit down when you are made to stand. Against the fear that convinces you comfort is better than courage. This is where you take the first swing, the first act of defiance. The moment you stop letting hesitation hold the leash. The moment you stop agreeing with your doubts. The moment you stop feeding the part of you that wants to stay small. Because you were never small. You were just convinced you were. And today, that illusion dies. There comes a moment when pain is no longer just pain. When failure is no longer just failure. When rock bottom stops being a grave and starts becoming something else. Something dangerous. Something alive. At first it's quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like surrender. You've been here before, lying in the wreckage of everything they did to you. Everything you did to yourself. The weight of every mistake pressing into your ribs. The taste of regret thick on your tongue. Blood and broken pride dripping from your skin. And for a second, just a second, you wonder if this is where you're supposed to stay, if this is all you'll ever be. But then something shifts. Maybe it's rage, maybe it's exhaustion, maybe it's the realization that you have been on your knees for too long, breathing in the dust of a world that never expected you to rise. Maybe it's the way your hands clench into fists before you even know what you're doing. Maybe it's the way your heart starts pounding, not in fear, but in something else, something raw, something defiant, something that sounds like no more. And just like that, the war turns. Because you understand now, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to reach down and lift you out of this pit. No one is going to undo the past, erase the scars, rewrite the story. It's on you. It has always been on you. So you make the decision, not with words, not with promises, but with something deeper, something final. You decide that you will never, never stay down again. You will never give them the satisfaction of watching you break. You will never be the person who quits before they even begin. The ground beneath you shakes as you rise. The air changes. The world shifts. They don't know it yet, but something has awakened. You have awakened. You wipe the blood from your mouth. You roll your shoulders back. You look at everything that tried to destroy you, and for the first time, you smile. Because they wanted you helpless. And now they should be afraid. The climb is brutal. Every step feels like it costs more than you have left to give. Your body aches, your mind screams, and there's a voice still clinging to the corners of your thoughts, whispering, what if you fall again? You will. But this time, you won't stay down. Because this is the ascent. The slow, painful, bloody climb out of the grave they left you in, out of the darkness you once called home, out of the version of yourself that settled for less, that swallowed their lies, that believed you weren't built for more. That version of you. Let it die here. Every time your hands slip, every time your knees buckle, every time doubt sinks its teeth into you, you move. You keep moving. No hesitation. No second guessing, because hesitation is the weight that will drag you back down. And you've been there before, haven't you? You know what waits at the bottom. The emptiness, the silence, the regret of knowing you could have been more, but chose not to be. Not this time. Move. This is not where you stop. This is not where you quit. I don't care if your muscles burn, if your lungs are screaming, if your mind begs you to slow down. You move, because every inch you gain is an inch they swore you'd never take. Every second you refuse to surrender is proof that they never had control over you in the first place. You are breaking through. Every weight, every label, every chain, they are snapping one by one, and they feel it. The world feels it. The shift, the change, the force of someone who is supposed to stay broken but refused. But listen to me. This part, this is where most people turn back. This is the test, because the pain will lie to you. It will tell you to stop. It will tell you this is enough, that you've already come so far, so why push further? Because far is not enough. Because you did not crawl out of your grave just to stand at the edge of it. Because you did not suffer through the darkness just to settle for the dim glow of mediocrity. Because you were meant for more, and more is what you will take. So keep climbing, keep fighting, move, because the top is waiting. They never thought this day would come. They never imagined you would make it out, that you would break through the walls they built around you, shatter the ceilings they swore you'd never touch, that you would rise, not quietly, not humbly, but like a storm tearing through everything they once used to keep you small. And now they are watching. They don't speak, not at first. Their mouths are slightly open, their eyes darting from you to each other, looking for an explanation. There isn't one. They had convinced themselves you were finished, that you were nothing more than a cautionary tale, a name they could mention in passing with a smirk, that you would fade into the background, forgotten. But now you stand before them, different, unrecognizable, and that terrifies them, because you are no longer begging for their approval. You are no longer shackled by their words, their opinions, their expectations. You don't need them anymore, and that is what burns them the most. They want to dismiss you, but they can't. They want to pretend you don't matter, but their silence betrays them. They feel it, the shift, the power they once held slipping from their grasp, pooling at your feet. You own the moment now, and they hate it. They hate that they underestimated you. They hate that every time they swore you were finished, you rose again, that you took every insult, every rejection, every ounce of doubt, and turned it into fire. And now they can't stop watching. Let them feel the weight of their own misjudgment. Let them sit in the discomfort of their own disbelief. Let them taste the bitterness of realizing that every time they said you couldn't, they were fueling the very thing that made you unstoppable. They wanted you helpless. Now, they are powerless to stop you. Look at you now. No chains, no doubts, no fear. They spent years trying to contain you, to mold you into something small, something safe. They wanted you predictable, obedient, silent. But every time they tried to bury you, every time they tried to make you disappear, they only fed the fire. And now you are the inferno. No longer waiting, no longer asking, no longer begging for a seat at their table. You build your own, no longer swallowing their lies, their limits, their expectations. You break them. Look in the mirror. Look at what you've become. The scars that once made you ashamed, now they mark you as untouchable. The wounds that once weakened you, now they fuel your strength. You no longer see pain when you look at yourself. You see power, because every time they said you couldn't, you did. Every time they whispered, stay down, you rose. Every time they laughed, thinking you were finished, you kept going. They don't laugh now. They don't doubt now, because they see it. The unstoppable force you've become, the version of you they feared, the one they prayed would never awaken. But it's too late now. You are here, and there is nothing they can do to stop you. They don't speak, not because they don't have words, but because words are useless now. They spent years shaping the story, writing you off, dictating what you could and could not be. But they never saw this chapter coming. They never expected you to rise so high that they would have to tilt their heads back just to see you. And now their silence is the loudest thing in the room. Because this is not just victory. This is not just proof. This is legacy. You did not rise just to prove them wrong. You did not fight your way out just for the sake of revenge. You did it because you were never meant to be small. Because your success is not just a statement, it is a revolution. They will remember you. They will speak your name in hushed tones, not out of pity, but out of awe. Not because you sought their approval, but because you rendered it meaningless. You broke their system, rewrote their rules, and walked away without looking back. And now others are watching. The ones who were told they were not enough. The ones who were made to believe they had no voice. The ones who saw you climb, who saw you break through, who saw you take everything they said you couldn't have. And now they know it's possible. Because if you could do it, so can they. You are never just fighting for yourself. You are lighting the way. And as you stand there, staring at the past one last time, you feel no anger, no bitterness, no need to prove anything. Because the greatest power is knowing you don't have to. So you turn your back and you walk away, untouchable, unshaken, unstoppable. This is it, the final moment. The place where doubt used to live, gone. The weight of every scar, every setback, every whispered insult, gone. The hesitation, the fear, the need for approval, erased. There is no trembling in your hands, no wavering in your voice, no looking back. Because everything that tried to break you, everything that told you to quit, everything that swore you would never make it, you left it behind. And now you ride, not quietly, not gently, not asking for permission, but like a force of nature, like a reckoning, like the moment they never saw coming, because they wanted you helpless. And now they can't stop watching. They can't stop watching the fire that refuses to die. They can't stop watching the strength they swore you'd never find. They can't stop watching the one thing they never expected, your unstoppable ascent. And you don't need their applause. You don't need their validation. But still, the world watches. The silence before the storm, the moment before the impact, and then thunder. The sound of everything shifting, the sound of limits breaking, the sound of history being rewritten. And as they stand there, frozen in the wake of your rise, you take one final breath, calm, steady, unshaken. You lock eyes with the past, with the doubt, with everything that once tried to hold you back. And with the weight of the entire world listening, you give them the final word, watch me rise. Mic drop, silence, and then applause that never ends.